Different scholars agree that there is much to learn from African democratization experiences, especially from dominant one-party systems like South Africa and Botswana, two-party systems as in Ghana, or a no-party system like Uganda under the movement system of governance before 2006. The interest in this compilation is focused on parties as part of the democratization process and how elections in party systems are managed, especially at this time when the electoral season is ripe in Uganda. Different political parties are preparing for the 2026 elections, and primaries are one of the most essential processes in this electoral politics. However, the laws governing state primaries are complex and nuanced, causing confusion among voters and election administrators alike.
Like what is happening now, you have the NRM, which had almost like a general election. The primaries were national. They were all over the place. The petitions out of that process are also still ongoing. You're having the people deciding for themselves who will be the flag bearer for the party. That's what you have with it. What happened with the NRM?
See, we have been having elections, but there is one thing which is missing, which is civic education. People are not taught to understand their political system, the values of their political system, and therefore different parties have not put in place strong structures. We don't have strong democratic institutions in this country, that we have structures that are able to handle election without having many people complaining. Now, when you look at NRM primaries, how many complaints have been registered?
Whilst some political parties like the NRM and NUP are already withering through the storm of primary elections, others are yet to hold their primaries, a practice popularized during the NRM reign, as history shows.
Now, the system of primaries has largely been popularized under the NRM government, where there is an internal competition to see who is able. And from that internal competition, when they decide those who they are going to support and those they think are able to take on, then we go into the national elections. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. The issue is politics is competitive by nature. So it does not help to field with candidates. But after 1980, there were attempts to return to democratic dispensations where elections matter in choosing a leader. And if you remember what happened in 1980, they did not vote the leader direct, they voted the party. And the leader of the national party became, the leader of the dominant party became the head of state.
It's a legal question. As you know, after noticing that we cannot do massive activities, we decided in our new constitution to put colleges, which would then select our candidates. But the regime, the electoral commission and all these people played games, and up to now our constitution has not been gazetted, although we are pursuing that.
Currently, the NRM is reviewing petitions from the outcomes of their recently concluded primaries, which saw a lot of violence and over 300 petitions from dissatisfied candidates across the country. Emmanuel Dombo, the NRM communication director, discusses the system's dynamics.
In the NRM, we have practiced a number of different methods of conducting internal primary elections. We started with the electoral college, which had its own disadvantages and it was discontinued. But because the NRM, as is now, is the successor organization to the National Resistance Movement system, which had used lining as a method of elections and which was very transparent, they decided to say, let us use adult suffrage, but at the same time we also do lining.
With many petitions and witnessed violence, many political observers believe this may not be the best option for primaries, considering other primary election systems that have stood the test of time. One of those is open primary, where voters do not need to affiliate with a party to vote and can choose in which primary to participate. The primary election is open to any eligible voter, not just those registered with that specific party. The second one is closed primary, where voters must be registered with a particular party before voting in that party's primary election. Independent and unaffiliated voters are not allowed to participate. The primary election is closed to those not registered with the party. The other system is concession, where the party's top leadership selects a suitable candidate based on factors at their discretion.
And then we have semi-closed, where the party members and those who are leaning or who are unaffiliated, they participate in choosing a candidate. For example, NRM, I would say, is using a semi-closed primaries, where you find the party members and those who are leaning participating. I can't say that it is purely closed, because in some situations they have failed to use the register.
When the NRM went to the bush, it did not benchmark from anywhere. They just started the People's Protracted War in Luwero, and it worked. They introduced the 10-point program, and they came and overthrew a government. Had it been benchmarked anywhere? So even when the movement system was brought, it had not been benchmarked anywhere. So even the lining system, it is something that hadn't been benchmarked, but had been tried under the movement system.
NUP adopted the use of vetting system in primaries, adopted from democracies like the UK Labour Party and South Africa's ANC. The exercise process slightly differs. For example, the ANC employs a multifaceted vetting system for candidates and officials, including lifestyle audits and no adverse findings from disciplinary processes or integrity commission reviews, as explained by political analysts Sultan Juma and Sarah Sari.
You see, other countries with very strong political parties, this indeed, the interest and the evolution will occur within the political party. Because you have vibrant political parties that are constantly organizing and are not just existing to either propagate themselves to power or to remove someone who is in power, but they are constantly organizing. If you're talking about the Labour Party, you're talking about the ANC, these are very old historical parties. So I imagine over time they have evolved systems that way.
I am wondering the criteria they have used to come up with it, these members of the tribunal, whatever. So I think this must be clear in our democratic process.
If we cannot have primaries, how then do we involve the people? So we decided that we'll have a ground survey. Ground surveys have been used in many systems to establish the pulse of the people, what is on ground and all that. So that is why we will send out teams to the ground to establish which candidates are popular, which candidates identify more with the values and objectives of the party.
Ultimately, finding a balance between openness and chaos is crucial in party primaries, considering the key factors influencing the outcomes: failure to follow key principles and procedures, party structures intertwined with the local council system, and the influence of the money culture in politics.
But of course also you've seen how NRM, even when our leaders win and go to parliament, they come knocking and try to bribe them, compromise them and all that. So we also know that if we decided to do those kinds of primaries, the NRM is likely to get a lot of money, invest them in these party, like they've done with other parties before, bring in a lot of money to ensure that they select the candidates of their choice and all that. So well knowing that that is the environment, we decided then to come up with the system of vetting. That system of vetting comprises of two components.
People are not taught to understand their political system, the values of their political system, and therefore different parties have not put in place strong structures. We don't have strong democratic institutions in this country.
So what could be the solutions to the challenges brought about by the vice of Uganda's primary election outcome?
So we need to have strong democratic institutions. For example, if we had a strong electoral commission body, could actually support these political parties to conduct their primaries.
I think it serves a pragmatic question that if you don't have money to run a national process, what do? You work with that. But I think the better process, if they had the resources, would be for the people to decide whether they want A or B to be their candidate. Because supposing the Secretariat sends, after vetting, sends you the member of parliament elect, okay, the candidate, and the people don't want that particular candidate.
The remaining question is how this exercise shapes Uganda's electoral landscape and provides healthy politics. As Uganda approaches the 2026 elections, there is still much to be done in how people perceive elections and primaries, as well as how to best address contestant satisfaction with results. Arafat Shafiq, NTV.